How you doing, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to This and That. I'm your host, Xander, where we talk about this, that, and everything in between. Wrapping up a very fulfilling Thursday. Uh, wasn't expecting what happened today to be happening today, but it happened today. So we're glad about that. Note, we are live 7 nights a week. We do not let the sun rise without going live. So you will see a different topic every night. As you guys can see, we just started keeping track of the tickers for all of the stock options that we have been recommending on the show. So you'll see those up at the top of the screen. Note that you can click that link in the comment section, approve the mic, approve the camera, and bring your cell phone in real time. Also, got to be over the age of 18 to dive onto the show, and individuals that are not interested in coming onto the show in real time can come onto the show in the comment section, and you will be able to be seen up here if your comments are appropriate. Recognize we have had a few individuals that got a little bit reckless in the comment section yesterday. Had to take care of that, so you know that these things do happen. We have talked about money Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. We talked about places to invest on Wednesday. We talked about how to evaluate your financial wealth this past Tuesday, and the ways that you can gauge your successfulness, which gives you the ability to determine what changes you can make in your life to further reach the goals and expectations that you have for yourself. And we talked about on Monday how things have changed since July 4th, where individuals and their benefits are going to be subject to scrutiny. So we have to make sure that we take it upon ourselves to make the changes as changes are made around us, because there are things that we can control, that we can navigate through if we make informed decisions. And then there are other things that are beyond our control that we have to navigate ourselves around. With that being said, we are now on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. We talk about ways for you to improve yourselves. And while we're giving you that type of information, it is leaning towards your ability to be financially stable, because the decisions that you make in your personal life negatively impacts your ability to make decisions in your professional life, and the lack of accessibility to wealth in your professional life compromises your ability to make the decisions that you want to make in your personal life. When you're hard up on money and you have more things that you want to have paid for, or more things that need to be paid for, then you have capital to pay for it, you find yourself missing out on financial opportunities because you only have a limited quantity of resources. And once you've dispersed them, something goes undone. In those experiences, sometimes you're disappointed, if not regretful, of the things that go undone, but you only have so much to work with. Here on This and That, where we talk about this, that, and everything in between, we tell you different ways for you guys to make changes so that you have more to work with, so that you're covering the spread. And if you're reducing the quantity of unnecessary spending that you have more discretionary capital to redirect towards investments. And by redirecting those discretionary capitals to investments, savings, other such, you will come to find that you have more capital to do more things. Now, one of the things I didn't tell you guys yesterday and the day before, what's going on, Steven? Steven's got the yo going on. What's going on, Steven? So those of you that are on Twitch and Twitter, as you can see, we do entertain comments from Twitch and Twitter as well. Interactive podcast. So if you guys got some questions or comments, please let me know. As long as they're appropriate, we'll walk through them. But one thing I didn't say yesterday and the day before yesterday, when we were talking about generating wealth, and we always mention that emergency fund, and the emergency funds that we think about is long-term unemployment. We think about unexpected loss of employment, changes in our financial status, like financial emergencies such as car crashes, unexpected medical bills, surgeries, stuff to that effect. I threw in the occasional, because low-income individuals, as well as wealthy individuals, but low-income individuals know people in their network that put themselves into legal matters, and we try to bail our friends out and bail our family members out. And some of us make bad decisions, and we ourselves need to be bailed out in a legal issue. What I didn't tell you guys, and it dawned on me overnight last night, I was watching Netflix, and I was watching a clip from a show. Actually, I think I was watching the whole series, but I started paying attention during a certain clip of the show where that's part of the emergency fund. The way it worked out, there was this chick. She was negotiating a deal with a major business because they were in a legal action. They were supposed to be settling for substantially large quantities of money. And she was trying to utilize the fact that the quantity of capital that the company would be losing is substantial. Well, big business guy explains to the girl, as soon as they knew that they were about to make a bad decision, many moons ago, they had put away what is called, they called it a rainy day fund, where they took the estimated amount of money that they would settle for and they put it away into investments, and it had gained 100 times more value than the settlement that they're going to offer in the legal action, which ultimately put them in a position where they are not really taking a loss because they put money aside to settle for a legal action. And that money was sitting into an account making money for them until the legal action occurred. So once the legal action occurred, all they have to do is stick with their lawyers and say nothing to make matters worse, and then just wrap things up. And then I thought to myself, I'm like, wealthy people have lawyers on retainer or capital to pay for lawyers that can be on retainer. If you're in situations where you're going to be in legal matters on a regular basis, you usually have at least one lawyer for every type of legal action that you're in. You should have at least one criminal lawyer, car insurance lawyer, you know what I'm saying? Civil action lawyer, you know, all of these things. Whether you have a defense lawyer or a prosecutor, you should have, you know, specific lawyers for specific things. And if you have a lawyer that is out of state, I found that lawyers are authorized to function in a specific state. And in order for them to function out of state, they have to partner with an in-state lawyer. So that means that if you have an exclusive lawyer from, say, Washington, D.C., and you're in a legal action in, say, Alabama, well, you need a Washington lawyer and an Alabama lawyer to run your case. And that's why you would see certain wealthy individuals will show up with a team of lawyers, 10, 12 lawyers that will tackle this one case from multiple different areas, because based on their experience from their own individual states and how this happens on a federal level, they typically attack this local claim, which crushes the opposition, because if you have a lawyer, you might have one lawyer. And if somebody else has 12, you got 12 people working on shutting you down. And that makes it harder for the person to lose. Now, that takes cash. Putting money away, recognizing certain lawyers are anywhere between $500 and more per hour of usage. You got to put a little bit of money away to save up money for legal counsel. And that helps you from the conversation that we had last night, where somebody was saying, oh yeah, a courthouse would tear apart your financial infrastructure if you have properties that are owned by businesses that are owned by trust that you have primary control over. And I was like, not so much, because if you do it right and it's coming from overseas, once the paperwork goes to a different country, like, they can't tie it back to you. But the only time people are really looking at how much assets you have is if you're bragging and boasting about it, or in situations where you're in legal actions where it's either criminal or civil, and restitution requires you to produce capital, and then they might start exploring how much you have to offer in order to determine how much compensation you have to provide to somebody else. But outside of legal action, the IRS is like the only person that's going to give a damn about how much money you personally make. And that's going to be based off of what gets deposited into bank accounts with your name on it. So I was like, wait, if we had lawyers for that too, that's why we have tax lawyers. That's why we have CPAs. That's why we have legal aids, in order to give us the information that we need to not get caught in legal action. So I thought that would be good to tip you guys off before we get started. Steven said, to be honest, I got no emergency funds for no emergency funds, too young for that. Oh, hey, the ideology is this: if you did not have it before we started talking about it, that's part of the savings. So we're doing the trades right now. We hit the ground running. So instead of us just throwing a bunch of money in our savings accounts and then waiting until it reaches a certain premium and then start putting money into investments, we took our extra capital, we put it into investments. Perfectly fine. Now, from here, if we want to start building an emergency fund, we can take the cash dividends from our trades. And when the dividends hit the account, instead of reinvesting them to increase our premiums, we could take some of those dividends and put them into an account that we can easily access for emergencies. Or if we're trading on a regular basis and any of our emergencies that are emergencies can wait a couple of weeks for the money to clear the bank, we could just sell some stock and then put it into the bank in order for us to take care of said emergency. But for those of us who do not have an emergency on a regular basis, and we decide, well, I want to focus more on blowing up my portfolio for right now, and then navigate myself to building more wealth where I have two paychecks. Because if I got a paycheck coming from my stocks that are equal to or higher than the paycheck that I earn on a daily basis, then I've got plenty of money. And that gives me the ability to redirect money to an emergency fund if I wanted to, or just leave it in a place where I can access it and then I can just liquidate and then run with it. Because think about this: if it is sitting there as settled capital in your stock option, like for those of us that are trading on a fintech application and we sold some stock, it's there, we're not using it, but we can if we see a good investment opportunity. If you've got a few $1,000s floating in your stock option, it only takes a few days to drop it into your bank account. So if you don't even have to sell the stock, if you've got just accessible cash just lingering in your fintech trading platforms, that could be your emergency fund right there. So if you have $2,000, $5,000, $10,000 sitting there waiting on a next trade, and until that next trade happens, if something happens in your personal life, instead of making that next trade, you can drop some of that money into your bank account. And within a couple of days, 24 to 48 hours, you see that money clear your bank, and then you can go ahead and take care of your problem. The other thing is, though, we've been working on building up the getting credit scores up to like 720 or whatever. And I was telling you guys about how you can use Experian to boost your credit, which basically puts all of your primary bills, utility bills, car insurance, mortgages, all that other stuff on your credit score, which kind of helps people find you if they're really trying to look. Because if they check your financial background, it shows where you spend your money, and that kind of gives people a place to start looking. If you don't mind being on the grid so that you can have a better credit score, you use that better credit score to get you more credit cards, and the more credit cards you have, if you're not spending what you don't have on a regular basis, when you do end up in a financial emergency, some of those emergencies you could potentially charge to your credit cards and then pay it back out of your dividends from your stock option whenever the stock option releases the capital. So at that point, if you have an emergency and you have $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 worth of credit cards, you can max out a few credit cards to cover that emergency if you have no other options, and then sell some stocks to cover the cost of the credit cards. And hopefully by the time the billing cycle rolls over on that credit card, you have paid it down with that stock option. And that kind of covers your spread. So these are things that we can navigate around in order to try to keep ourselves afloat until we can reach that higher status. It does take a lot of time. This is a snail's pace scenario, but you can see immediate gratification from some of the trades like me and Steven have been doing over the past couple of weeks. So actually over the past month, but we've seen some big trades happen over the past couple of weeks. And if you bought into Global Net before the end of business day today, you're about to see a pretty significant return tomorrow that is going to be paying out soon enough. So we will be working on what other options we're going to be trading into starting on Monday. So just note that we've got new things to buy into. We're going to be dealing with some sales. We're going to be looking at all of the opportunities that we have accessible, and we're just going to figure things out from there. And as we move, because Steven said he already went and bought Zim stock, and I'm like, I'm about to buy some Zim stock. I just seen the stock dip on that mother. I'm like, as soon as it clears on Friday, I'm like, now is the time. Now is the time to get it, because it is down right now. And if I get into it while it's down right now, when it goes back up over the next 2 weeks and it reaches its peak, it should be, 50 to 75 cents higher than what it was when I started, so that when it sells, I'm not losing much, break even, and get significant quantities of payback on that. So that's what we're going to be looking for the 2nd of August. And as I told you guys, I'm going to be curating the August rotation so that we can incorporate some of the quarterlies that are going to be in the August rotation. So we'll be talking about that coming soon so that you guys are prepared for it. And I'm going to be telling you which ones we're going to be doing. And I think I'm going to release that for the 2nd, because we're going to be selling on the 3rd. So by the 3rd, I should be able to tell you guys which other ones we're getting into, because there's quite a few of them in August. There's August and September. So I'll be telling you about the ones specifically in August, and then I'll be telling you about the ones that are specifically in September. And we'll have the list rolled out just like that. So let's go ahead and get into today's show, because today we're supposed to be talking about not wasting the money that you get from your pay raise. Now, we did talk before about calculating the value of your wealth. Now we're going to be talking about properly positioning the capital that you get from your raise, and potentially how you could better negotiate a pay raise in situations when you're not dealing with a cap in pay. Because those of us that understand that when we're working in what is called a dead-end job, they're not really dead-end jobs, because true to life, a dead-end job is a job that has no promotions. And ironically, a true to life dead-end job would be like a doctor, lawyer, nurse, because you don't get a promotion in that job. What happens is that you qualify from extra degrees, and then you change jobs. Sometimes you can do it in the same company, but you don't go from being I mean, in law firms you can, but like, for example, a doctor in a hospital, always a doctor. A nurse doesn't become a doctor. The janitor doesn't become a nurse. The surgeon is either a surgeon or the head surgeon if there isn't if there is more than one surgeon there. But non-surgical doctors might go into surgical doctors, but that's pretty much it. Anesthesiologist is always an anesthesiologist. You know what I'm saying? It's just there isn't much navigation in that. If you want to change titles in that particular type of field and certain fields similar to it, what you have to do is you have to learn more things and then apply for a different job, completely different job. But in other companies that allows you to get promoted from within, they have higher job positions than the one that you currently have. These are the things that might help you with navigating how to negotiate your jobs, your promotions. Instead of just talking about how good you are at what you do, you talk about how what you do brings more money to the company or saves more money to the company's budget. And we're going to talk about that today. This will help you with navigating how you can get more experience on a job, how you can get benefits that you can benefit from for future promotions. And then we're going to be talking about how to navigate the wealth that you get so that you're not missing out on the raise that you're getting, because a lot of times people slip. We get more money, we spend more money. So we're going to be talking about a lot of things that you can do differently with that. So stay tuned with us today. Make sure that you like and subscribe as we go along. And I just kind of want you guys to start off by imagining this. You get an email, your manager wants to see you, right? Now, imagine that you walk into their office, your heart's pounding just a little bit. They sit you down, they smile, and they slide a piece of paper across the desk. It's a pay raise, right? 3%, maybe even 5%. Congratulations is the thought that's going through your mind. Your boss is happy, you're happy, and you walk out feeling validated, appreciated, and successful, right? Michael says, I can give everyone a $10 pay raise per day or putting $300 per month without much effort. Don't spend the money on fast food. He has your fired pink slip. Well, you're right about that. And that's just what I was about to let them know. If you're not prepared for that random you're fired pink slip, then you're not ready for the ability to talk to your bosses about promotions, because you got to understand that if you want a raise and you're working for a job where they don't give out raises that often, there's a negotiation there that's a little bit harder to deal with, which might require you to make demands. Then if they're not willing to give you those demands, then you have to decide, are you going to maintain your employment or are you going to change jobs? If you're going to change jobs, you're going to have a gap in pay. When you start asking your job for a raise and a promotion, you're letting your job know that you are not being financially satisfied with your current employer. Once they start giving you the I'm not interested in satisfying your needs conversation, that's when you start looking somewhere else. Your work ethic starts to decline. But when your work ethic starts to decline, your employer starts threatening your job. You are going to have to make a change. You're either going to have to suck it up and keep working the way they want you to work because you have no other opportunity, or you change jobs. Yeah, we are so used to being punished. And that's the thing. A lot of us are afraid to ask for a raise. The best that we get is that we ask for more hours. We don't ask for a raise. We just say we need more money, right? And we're willing to do whatever it takes to get more money, even if that means working double overtime. With the double overtime scenario that I was thinking about this, because they're offering like $12,000 a year worth of overtime hours. And I was like, well, that's not necessarily a lot of money. But then I thought about it. In your paycheck, your time and a half, the half hour is the overtime pay. So if you work 40 hours, you only get your regular pay. So if you're making $20 an hour, you get $20 an hour for the first 40 hours. When you're doing time and a half, that half time is overtime. So the next 10 hours, you would be getting your regular $20 an hour pay and an extra $10 per hour of overtime pay, right? Now, this is going to be consistent until the new billing cycle, the pay period, works over, right? Now, if they're giving you $12,000 of overtime pay, tax-free, you had to think about exactly how much is that? Well, for an individual that is working $20 an hour, think about this: $12,000 a year, $1,000 a month, $250 a week, right? So between $250 a week or $250 or $500 a paycheck, right? If you're getting paid bi-weekly. So $250 a week. If you're doing $10 an hour of overtime hours, which is the halftime on your hourly wage, right? That $250 would stretch you like 25 hours of overtime. So you'd be working 65 hours a week. And that 25 hours of overtime would be non-taxed. It is not actually going to be technically non-taxed because, as we discussed the last time we covered that area, it would be like deducted. So they're going to probably take it out of your check and then they're going to give it back to you in a massive return at the end of the year. But you'll see a difference in the quantity of money that you're going to be paying taxes on. Now, that's going to be pretty interesting to see in the upcoming years. as employers change their payrolls, compounded daily at this rate, well, yeah, but you're looking at, if they're covering you for 25 hours, that's a manager's salary, right? Because the average hourly worker works 45 to 50 hours a week. Managers typically work 65 hours a week. So this is like middle class incomes, right? Well, yeah, you can drop it in your 401k. That's true. But when I thought about that, I was like, well, holy snap. They're giving you $12,000 on top of the rest of the money that you're going to be making. But the other $20 an hour for that 25 hours is still going to be taxed. So you're still going to see you're still going to see 65 hours of taxed money. It's just that you're going to see 25 hours of overtime hours not taxed. He said, drop it on land. Well, yeah, you can drop it on land if you can afford it. It depends on how much the land costs. So, well, here's a brutal truth, though. They don't tell you about this when you're asking for your raises and stuff, is that piece of paper that offered you that 3 to 5% might be a lie, because maybe it's, in some scenarios, well intended to be a lie. But it's a lie, nonetheless, because after the silent thieves of taxes and inflation take their cut, your so-called raise could actually be a pay cut, which is what we've experienced back in the day when we used to get paid higher taxation on overtime hours. This would leave you with less buying power than you had last year. And you're working harder because when they give you more money, when they give you a better title, they expect you to work harder or perform more tasks in a shorter period of time, which puts more responsibility on your plate for the dollars that you're getting, but you're not buying as much stuff as you used to. And this could have you in a position where you could actually be getting poorer. As we go along, I'm going to be showing you guys exactly how this deception works, and I'll give you the tools to calculate your real take-home increase. And most importantly, I'm going to arm you with a proven step-by-step strategy to negotiate a raise that actually makes you richer. This isn't just about getting more money. It's about understanding your true value and having the confidence to claim it. So if you're ready to stop leaving money on the table and start building real wealth, you need to watch the rest of this show. Is it changing time for money? Well, yeah, well, when you're working for somebody else, that's exactly what you do. Actually, more often than not, unless you're making passive money, and passive money is going to be specifically if you're putting money onto the stocks and letting it sit there and make its own money. That's probably the closest thing to passive. It does require effort, but it doesn't require work. The effort would be monitoring the stock market, looking at the trade values, checking the money, checking your emails, making sure that the money is where it's supposed to be before you put it where you want it to be, stuff to that effect, right? Now, that doesn't take a lot of time. If you're watching a handful of stocks trade, or if you're doing a buy and hold on certain stocks, you're not necessarily planning on selling them. If you're doing a long haul, those buy and hold stocks are just going to be there, right? The ones that you're doing trades on, day traders don't actually trade every day. And I've said this before this past week, day traders don't actually trade every day. They just look at the potential trades every day to see when is a good time to trade, when is a good time not to trade, to see when they need to make an emergency sale and when they can go ahead and ride the wave. The fact is that they might do 2 or 3 trades a week or 4 or 5 trades a month, depending on how much money they're moving around and how often they're trying to move it. As we've been doing in the month of July, we've had 2 trades. We bought one, we sold it, then we bought another one. We actually could have bought 3 this month if you bought Arbor Realty and Global Net before Friday. And then you'll be selling Global Net by Tuesday and selling Arbor Realty by Wednesday. And that's 3 for the first half of the month. That's not a lot of trading. That's not like sitting there all day long, like the guys on Wall Street pushing money around. Those guys are getting paid by the transaction. So the more transactions they do, the more money they're making. We get paid off of the returns off of our investments. So the more valuable the return, the more money we make. So we can make quality trades where people on Wall Street are making quantity trades, right? Now, if you're working for somebody else, your presence is what you're getting paid for. And I used to say this on my job, and people are like, oh, that's a dickish move. No, think about it. I get paid for my presence, because when I show up and I clock in, as long as I am here, or as long as I'm on the clock, I'm supposed to be here. And as long as I'm here, I'm expected to get paid, right? Now, whether or not you continue to pay me depends upon my work ethic in comparison to everybody else and the overall productivity of the shift, right, that I'm working on. If I have a high work ethic and I work harder than the people around me, I'm always expected to be on the shift, especially when a lot of stuff needs to be done in a short period of time. But if I'm not very productive, while I might still have a shift, I might not be put on the shifts that require extra effort because I don't perform at the extra effort level, right? I'm exchanging my time for money. As Michael just said, that's exactly what's happening here. I'm exchanging my time for money. If I want more money, I have to give up more of my time. Now, what we can do is that we can negotiate how much our time is worth based off of how much we do for the company that we work for. But that's still the negotiation of in exchange of time for money. I get paid not to show up, passive income. And that right there is what we're working towards, getting paid to stay at home, stay in bed, on the golf course, on the yacht at the Bermuda Triangle, in the air, in the plane, traveling to another country, still getting paid. That's what we're focused on, right? Now, in order for us to get there, we first have to make enough extra money for us to put enough extra money aside so that we can invest more of the money that we're getting in more places so that we can make money for us. If the money that we're setting aside is turning a profit, that's what it means to make money for you. We put money somewhere and we are getting paid for that. That is passive. Besides an inheritance, the only passive income that you have is investments, because you put your money somewhere, it stays there, and you get paid off for your money being there. You can put effort into investigating where your money is going to make the most money and relocating your money when your money is not necessarily going to make money, but that is not nearly as much as residual income from putting a lot of hard work into something, building it up, and then continuously receiving capital from it after the fact. Real estate is not passive income. Real estate is residual income. You put money down on a property, you have to find it, you have to close a deal, you have to manage the renovations of it, you have to manage the sale of it, then you get the money, you got to pay everybody that you borrowed money from to get that, then you have to take the change, you got to go start up another one. That is residual. You buy a rental property, you have to first investigate the property, you have to get it, build it up, you have to find some tenants, put the tenants in there. Then if you're going to have a property manager manage the situation, then you're going to go find another property. He said, yeah, I'm heading out early today. W stream. All right. He said, I'll be in the next live. I'll see you tomorrow. So we're going to be, because you're going to take this opportunity to come back and see what else we're going to be talking about on today's show, because we're going to be navigating some ways for us to work out how we're going to be improving ourselves with negotiating our raises, but also how we're going to budget those strategies. So make sure that you take a look at that after the show. Michael said, my first job was a paper route at 8 years old. My first job was a lemonade stand outside of a courthouse. Try to rewatch it. You could always skip halfway through when I start getting into the meat and potatoes of things, because I actually haven't gotten into the meat and potatoes of it. But the side discussions that we're having right now leads into those meat and potatoes. So you'll be able to see some beneficial information that you can work with. So like my lemonade stand was a fantastic thing, because like folks, they go to court, especially the people that are about to get convicted. They go to court, they walk out of the courtroom, they need a drink. The nearest restaurant was a block and a half down the road. When court gives you a 5 or 10 minute recess, you don't have enough time to walk down the street and get anything. And that is one of the issues that they used to have. They would get them a drink of water or something like that. They started putting in certain courthouses, they started putting cafeterias like the ones we have in downtown. They're on the second floor. They have a cafeteria where you can get you some food and drink and stuff. But back in my day, when we were doing it, he said lemonade and whiskey. Now we were at 9 years old. I couldn't do whiskey, but we did lemonade. So we set up shop right outside the courthouse, and for 50 cents, they would come and get them a little shot of some lemonade. It was old school lemonade, like good, you know what I'm saying? Southern style lemonade. So they would come out, they would get them a few drinks. I was making significant capital off of that. I loved it. These days you got to have a business license. You can't do it in certain places, but like 30 years ago, like that was a thing to do. And I went from that to landscaping to working for big businesses to having my own big business. So, you know, the entrepreneur mindset, it capitalizes. But the thing is that, yeah, with real estate, it is not one of those situations. They call it passive income because the money continues to generate after you've walked away from it. But the true to life definition of it is residual income, because you are still, even if you're trying to get $500, like Michael said yesterday, thank you very much. Like Michael said yesterday, $500, even if you're trying to have $500 in your real estate portfolio, the fact is that after you buy the first one, you've got to go out and buy the second one. That's effort. They're still paying you after you put forth the effort to go get them. That's not passive. That's residual. Until you get $500, that's not passive. That's residual. And then if they continue to pay you after that, ideally it is still residual, because you put a lot of work into getting $500 under your portfolio. To have whether it's $500 over across of 50 apartment complexes, or if you have 500 single family homes, that is a lot of buying, selling, negotiating, contracts, you know, renovations, all this stuff. That's a lot of effort, and it's still paying you on the back end. So the idea is, when you're dealing with stocks, the most effort that you're putting into is paying attention to which ones you're going to invest in and how well they're doing. If you're following the trends, like you see with the stock options that we have above, if you're following the trends of the stock options, you see when they rise, you see when they fall, you see when you put your money there, you see when you take your money out. That's it. That's not a lot of effort, like 20, 30 minutes a day, including the moving of the money. That's it. That's not a lot of effort. And then the money makes money for you. That is the closest thing to passive. But true passive is money that came to you that you can spend without you having to do anything for. That is true passive. But the closest thing to passive is stocks. He said, cheaper to build than to go find them. Yeah, but you still gotta find land. You have to find the land, and then you got to develop the land, and that's still effort. He said a lot of maintenance and labor costs, extremely right now with the tariffs, because they did not reduce the cost for the materials for manufacturing vehicles or renovating houses, but they did. It is still starting to pick up right now. All I do is move the money. That is what we need to do. That is exactly what we need. That's the truest definition of passive, is all we do is move the money. And when you have enough money sitting there, when you make enough money and have enough money in stocks where you don't have to move them at all, where your 15 to 20% interest is under the $97,000 if you're married, under $64,000 if you're single, and the rest of the money that is, it doesn't have to go anywhere. You're just getting paid. That is the best part. That's the truest part of passive income. And what are you looking at? $2,000 off of every $100,000 is 20%, right? No, $20,000 off of $100,000 is 20%. So to get $60,000 or $64,000, $300,000 producing you $60,000 a year at 20%. If you're getting like 15%, which is like the average, if you're getting 15% interest, that's like $15,000 off every $100,000, which means if you're getting $60,000, that's upward of $400,000 sitting in the bank, or not sitting in the bank, it's sitting in the stocks. And that $400,000 is generating you $60,000 that you don't have to do anything for. And in the dividend rotation strategy that we talk about, that $400,000 that you made would be in like quarterly stocks. It's going to pay you regularly, and you're not going to move that. And then anything else above that, you would be moving it around, because I mean, they're going to tax it one way or another. Once you have that 64,000 of payout, everything above that is rotated in dividend rotation strategy to continue to increase your wealth, because it's going to be taxed regularly regardless. But right now, as we're building wealth from 1,000 to 400,000, so that our 15 to 22% is in line with the $60,000 worth of non-tax money when it doesn't move for over 121 days. You buy, you sell, you take some of it, you put it into a monthly, you leave it there, and you keep moving everything else. Plain and simple. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. Then the rest of the money that you get will pay you in leaps and bounds. And that way you're able to ultimately have less money taxed by the end of the year, because you have more money that's qualifying for the non-taxed scenario as you buy and hold it. See what I'm saying? But let's go ahead and get into this. Let's break down the illusion, right? It's built on two things that quietly drain your wealth without you even noticing it: taxes and inflation. So you might think you know about them, but most people drastically underestimate their combined power to eat away at your income. First, let's talk about taxes. That headline number on your raise letter, right? That's your nominal wage increase. So it's the number before the government gets its share, your gross, right? But you don't live on nominal dollars. You live on what actually hits your bank account, which is the after taxes income. So let's create a character. We'll call him Ryan. Ryan is a marketing manager earning $80,000 a year. He's had a great year, crushed all his targets, and gets rewarded a 4% raise, right? Fantastic. That's an extra $3,200 a year. He said, it's best to watch your pennies. Your dollars will work for themselves. You're right. Gross versus net income. Exactly. So on paper, that sounded pretty good. Ryan is now earning $83,200. But this is where the first cut happens. That $3,200 raise isn't taxed at some low rate. It's taxed at your marginal rate. And your marginal tax rate doesn't always stay the same. This is a critical distinction. So your marginal rate is the taxes that you pay on your next dollar of income, and it's almost always higher than your overall tax rate, right? And this is the reason why you end up not seeing the increases. He said, he's broke, he spent his raise. Look now, you already know. So let's say Ryan combined his federal and state tax marginal rates, which would be 30%. That sucks. I am glad I don't live in states that charge state tax, but that means that $3,200 raise, when the tax man immediately snatches $960 out of it, is not nearly as high as they thought it was. So Alex's actual take home increase from the raise is not 3,200, it is 2,240 for the year. Now, that's about 186 extra dollars a month. It's still something. Fill your gas tank up a little bit more often, but it's already a lot less exciting. But the tax man is only half the story. The other, more insidious thief is inflation. Inflation is why a coffee that cost $3 last year might cost $3.15 this year. It's a silent pay cut for everyone. To know if you're actually getting ahead, your raise has to beat the inflation rate. So this is the whole concept of real wages. Your pay adjusted for inflation, which tells you what your real purchasing power is. So if your raise is 4%, but inflation is 3%, your real income has only grown by 1%, and you're barely treading water. He said, knock, knock, who's there? Taxes man. Tax man coming to take your shit. They took our jobs. So back to Ryan. He got a 4% nominal raise as of May of 2025, right? The annual inflation rate was about 2.4%. So his 4% raise is beating inflation, right? Well, yes, but that's before taxes. So we need to figure out Ryan's real after taxes increase. So this is the only number that truly matters. His nominal raise was 4%. Inflation is 2.4%. So his real pre-tax raise is 4% minus 2.4%, which is 1.6%. And let's apply this to the dollars. So on his original $80,000 salary, just keeping up with 2.4% inflation, Ryan would need to earn $81,920 just to buy the same stuff that he could last year. His new salary is $83,200 after we account for the inflation. The real value of his new salary in last year's dollars is about 81,125. So after a year of hard work, Ryan's actually increase in purchase power is just $1,250 for the year, or about $104 a month. And remember, this is before we even factor in the hit that taxes took on that raise. He said 1% at most. You're right. Just got to it. He lost 8% due to inflation. You crunching the numbers. Now, the brutal truth is that a standard 3 to 5% raise, which many companies consider fair, often fails to meaningfully increase your wealth. Now, to be fair, from 2024 to 2025, the average raise did grow about, it grew by about 4.1%, which outpaced a 2.3% inflation rate, meaning an average person did see some real wage growth. But this isn't guaranteed every year. Just look at the high inflation years of 2021 and 2022, when most people got poorer, and average doesn't mean you. It just means that everybody else except you. One of the things we also recognize, 2%. One of the things that we also recognize is that they do not give you a raise every year. Most companies are giving you a raise once every 5 years, or whenever you do something significant in the company. So you might get a raise above minimum wage, and then you might not see another raise until minimum wage meets your rate of pay. And if that takes 5 years, you every year. Most people do ask their boss for a raise every year. Usually, if you're getting paid minimum wage, you mandatorily see a raise on your paycheck every year because you are not making the minimum standard of living. You're not getting living wage. You're getting half of living wage, and that is not enough. So they're not going to let you get less than that. So they'll give you a quarter or two dimes or a nickel or something like that, and just a little bit of a raise every year to keep you at or a couple cents above minimum wage. That's when you see raises frequently. But if you're making $25 an hour in a state where $15 an hour is the average minimum wage expectation, and the legal documented minimum wage expectation is like $10 to $13 an hour, or $5 or $7 an hour, depending on what state you're going to, you're making $10 or $15 more than minimum wage. Your boss ain't giving you a raise unless you did something for the company that they're like, I like your style. And when you get that, then they will give you a raise. So that means you might work for the same company for 2, 3, 5 years and not get a raise. So this is the lie, the gap between the number on the paper and the reality in your bank account. Your employer isn't necessarily being evil. They're just counting on the fact that most people don't do this math. But you're not most people after coming to tonight's show. From now on, you're going to see numbers for what they really are. Knowledge is power. And in this case, that power comes from a little bit of math. It's time to stop guessing and start calculating. So I'm going to walk you through how to perform a financial x-ray on your pay raise so that you can see with total clarity if you're moving forward or falling behind. This will only take a few minutes, and it can change you and your financial future for life. We'll call this the real value calculation. It's 3 steps. Step 1, find your after-tax raise. First, how much of your raise do you actually keep? Find your nominal raise in dollars. If you went from $60,000 to $63,000, your raise is $3,000. Next, you need to marginalize your tax rate. A quick search for federal income tax brackets for this year will give you the federal part. Don't forget to add your state's income tax rate if you have one. And if you're unsure, you can estimate with 25 to 35%, but getting a precise number is far better. You say, I raise the rent $20 per 500 doors, giving myself a $10,000 per raise. Well, yeah, you could do that. If you're looking to stay on top of inflation, you also have the capabilities of expanding on the quantity of doors that you have, not raising the rent, maintaining the same. I actually found out from a real estate investment agent, he never raises the rent on his tenants. When they move out, he will renovate the apartment and then charge more money for the new tenant to move in. And what that does is that it guarantees that the current income that you have on a property is guaranteed. Because if they could afford it 5 years ago, unless they lose their job, they can afford it now. But if you raise the rent every quarter, or if you raise the rent every year, a guaranteed tenant that used to always pay on time, you will push the cost of rent above their ability to afford it. And then you will have the tenant that used to be historically always on time or early, now paying late. Then, because of the fees for the late fees, you have a tenant that not only can't pay the rent on time, they can't pay the late fees. And then you'll end up with the cost of court, where you're evicting them off of the property. You're still going to have to renovate the property. And then you're still going to have to put a new tenant in there that can now afford the higher cost. So you would end up costing yourself slightly more profit and causing yourself a higher turnover ratio, which causes yourself to spend money on investments, which would cause you to lose out on some of that gain that you would have made off of raising the rent off of everybody. Now, yeah, you can raise them, offset it, make some profits somewhere else, so that the money that you're spending on this is not going to hurt you that much. But he says, same here, long-term tenants. can't bleed, can't get blood out of a turnip. Mom used to say that all the time. So in real estate, yeah, usually what we see across the country, the rent usually goes up about $100 a year. But if the tenant was at 89% of their income, and then you raised it $100, they can't afford it. You say that in America, with the statistics have shown that in America, about 68% or so of your standard of living is your rent or your mortgage. Now, if it keeps going up, but your income doesn't keep going up, if you're not making an extra $100 a month on your check, you're not able to cover the raise of the rent. Now, when we talked about Ryan example earlier in the show, if the rent goes up $100 and Ryan's overall successful raise was $104 after inflation and after taxes, once you raise the rent, you just took his pay raise. So the boy's still breaking even. He ain't making no extra money. He hasn't gotten ahead of the game. The more money he makes, the more money you take out of his pocket. A pack of cigarettes is at least $10. Yeah, a pack of cigarettes is $17.84 or $18.95 for a pack of Newports in New York. And that's the value of like 4 shares for the stock that we're buying today. And that's what people don't think about. Got to quit smoking so you can afford to pay the rent and the 25% taxation from Canada on the electric bill. But you'll pay more for cigarettes. Some people do. Some people pay more for cigarettes and alcohol than they do for their normal standard of living. Now, the formula that we're going to be using here is the raise amount times 1 year marginal tax rate, which equals your after-tax raise. Using our example, a $3,000 raise at 30% marginal rate is 3,000 times 1 minus 0.03, which is 3,000 times 0.7 equals 2,100. So your annual take-home pay increase is 2,100 or $175 a month. After your landlord takes more money off the rent, you only get $75 a month, but that's not this example. That's just hypothetical based on what me and Michael was talking about. Now, this $175 from our example is your actual cash increase. You want to write that number down. Step 2, calculate the inflation hit on your entire salary. This is the step everyone misses. Inflation doesn't just hit your raise. It delves and devours into every dollar that you earn. So first, find the current inflation rate. Search for the latest consumer price index or current U.S. inflation rate, and we'll use 2.4% for this example. And now you're going to take your original salary from before the raise. We're going to need to see how much money you need just to have the same buying power you did last year. So the formula is the original salary times inflation rate, the cost of standing still. So for that, we had a $60,000 salary with a 24% interest rate, which is 60,000 times 0.024. That's going to be 1,140. This number is so important. So write that down. And you're looking at how much your raise needs to cover before any money that you get allows you to get richer. Now, it's an invisible tax you pay every single year, but we've got to get used to that. Find your real wealth growth is the next step. Now we're going to put it all together. We compare your actual take-home raise to what you need to just keep up with your current standard of living. He said, "You're broke, off to work you go." That's it. Ultimately, that's what happens. But the formula for Ryan's after-tax raise is the cost of standing still, which equals your real wealth growth. So let's plug in all of the numbers. The $2,100 after-tax raise minus the $1,440 inflation hit leaves $660 for the year. And that's the answer. $660 for the year. That ain't that's a couple dollars a month. And that's the truth. After a $3,000 raise, your real world increase in buying power for the whole year is $660, which is about $55 a month. So when a landlord raises the rent $100, they're overshadowing your budget and forcing out tenants, which causes gentrification, because those people who can't afford the higher rent premiums will move to cheaper areas and usually live in lower quality standards of living in order to meet the same budget. He said, I can buy a car. You could buy it, like you said, like you said yesterday, buy it, use it for a month, then sell it back at the auction. So is that what you thought you were getting for the year of hard work that you put in? Most people would say no. Not with $55 a month. What if your raise was just 3% on that $60,000 salary? That's an $1,800 nominal raise. If you run those fast numbers, after tax raise at $1,800 times 0.7%, which will be $1,260. Then if you hit that inflation hit, which is still $1,440, the real wealth growth is your $1,260 minus the $1,440. You would be at a loss of $180 in your spending power. Let that sink in for a second. With a 3% raise, you are officially poorer than you have been before. And now you're dealing with $180 of less purchasing power than you did last year. The company gave you a raise, patted you on the back, and you're financially worse off. And once you've accepted that raise, they're not giving you another for at least another year. And this isn't hypothetical. This happens to millions of people who feel like they just can't get ahead. And this is the reason why. Now you have the formula. And actually, I'm going to give you guys a formula. I'm going to go back and grab the formula for you so that you guys have the formula. Throw it into the comment section for you so that you can do your own math here. So after tax raise minus the cost of standing still is going to equal your real wealth growth. We're going to be looking into that. So let's grab that real quick. And I'm going to also put it into the comment section for those of you that are watching us on Twitter. And then we're looking at the other formula that helps you determine the cost of standing still, the original salary times inflation. I'll throw that in there as well. I want to make sure that you guys have it. And then throw this over here for you guys over here with the. So now y'all know what y'all are dealing with. And then you just plug in the values. Now, back to where we were. Now that you have the formula, the answer to get good or bad is your starting point, right? And it's evidence that you need to stop being a passive recipient and start being an active participant in your own financial life. So now that you have cold, hard numbers, you know the standard raise can be a financial illusion. Now what do? You can't just walk into your manager's office and say, inflation is eating my lunch, I need more money, right? While it's true, it's a complaint, not a strategy. To get a raise that actually moves the needle, you have to shift the conversation from what you need to what you're worth. This means you need to build a rock solid, evidence-based business case for yourself. I call it the value dozer. This isn't a list of your job duties. It's a file that proves with undeniable evidence the value you create for the company. And I'm going to be real with you. I used to do this and did not realize it when I was doing it, because I mean, I carry more logic than a Vulcan from Star Trek, and I look at how I'm entitled to more money. For example, I would have certain conversations with my employer and say, well, hey, you know, I want a $2 or $3 raise. I'm doing the work of 10 people. I'm on a skeleton crew. I am increasing your sales by 20% or 15%, saving your waste, which puts more money in the company's pocket, you know, and doing all of this for less than I believe that I'm worth. When you think about how much you charge per person for, if I'm working day shift, how much you're charging per person for day shift versus how much you're profiting off of night shift with a third of the work load, not workload, but a third of the workforce, you're looking at, you're making X number of dollars of profit, because when I don't come to work, you have to put 5 more people on the clock. Now, if each person is making close to what I'm making, if you take 5 people off the schedule and give me $3, you just saved X number of dollars per shift. That particular type of negotiation gives the boss fair observations like, yeah, let's give him X, Y, and Z. Let's put him here. Let's put him there. Let's put him into a manager position. Let's upgrade him. And I would get whatever it was required from, because I explained to them some of the ins and outs and some of the navigations. Now, I'm going to give you guys a different tool. Well, it's kind of the same discussion, but it's going to be different for those of you that are not working in manual labor jobs. For those of you guys that are working in task-based jobs where your actions does draw back revenue. He says, being a male nurse, my boss always gave me a raise. Well, if you've got a female boss, that does happen from time to time. The dozer strategy is your confidence, your script, and your sword and shield, which is something that you can cultivate at the house. Put all of what you do for your company and how your company benefits from it together, and then you're capable of making a well-deserved argument when you are demanding a raise, or when you're demanding a higher raise than the one that they offered you. And this is going to be your sword and shield for defending the increased raise that you're expecting. It should have 3 pillars: qualifiable wins, qualifiable impact, and market intelligence. So the first pillar, qualifiable wins, this is the most critical part. Numbers are the language of business, so they're persuasive and very hard to argue with. Your goal is to translate your work into matrix that leaders care about: money earned, money saved, or time saved, which is what I explained to you guys before. Now, when you go through it, your work from last year, for every big project, you ask yourself, did this make the company money? How much? Did this save the company money? How much? Did this save the company time? How much is that time worth? Exactly what I explained to you. If when I'm coming to work, you're getting a 15 or 20% increase in sales, I'm making you a profit from being present. If I'm doing the work of 5 or 7 people and each one of them is making similar to my salary, you are saving 80%, because if I'm 1/5 of the workload, you're only paying 20% of cost for 100% of the workload. These are things that you're able to show when you're able to negotiate. Did I improve the process? If I came in, if I show up during the rush and I expedite and increase the productivity of the shift, I improved the process. How much was that percentage? Don't just say I managed the social media campaign. You got to say I developed the Q3 social media strategy that boosted lead conversations by 25%, directly creating a $50,000 new sales pipeline. That is a different scenario. He said, riding the wave. I see what you're saying. It makes sense. Well, ideology coming off of logic usually does make sense. But don't say I help streamline workflow. You say I built a new automation template that cut our weekly reporting time by 10 hours, saving the company an estimated $25,000 a year in productivity. See the difference? One is a task. The other is a value statement. Get 3 to 5 of these, put them on a clean document, and you have your brag sheet. It's not ego, it's facts. Pillar 2 is going to be qualitative impact. Not everything fits in a spreadsheet. This is about your contributions to culture, leadership, and your skills. Think about mentorship. Have you trained new people? I onboarded our 2 new junior analysts and got them fully up to speed in 4 weeks instead of the usual 6 weeks. New skills. I have earned certifications or mastered new software. For those of you working in manual labor jobs, I have gotten certified on certain equipment in the store. I completed my advanced Google analysis certification and used it to build 3 new dashboards that gave leadership real-time visibility into our campaign performance as a hypothetical. Then problem solving. Are you the one who stays calm in a crisis? During the website outage in May, I coordinated with IT and handled client communication, which helped us retain customer trust during a critical incident. Extra responsibilities. Have you taken on work above your pay grade? That is always a key factor. For the last 3 months, I have managed the freelance budget, a task previously handled by the department head. These points show you're an asset that would be difficult and expensive to replace. Pillar 3 is going to be market intelligence. Once you know your value inside the company, you need to know your value outside of the company. This is your reality check. Some of y'all might get disappointed. Y'all might not get promoted in your job and then find out that you can't even get hired somewhere else. Then you really feel bad. But for others, using an online salary tool, sites like Glassdoor, PayScale, and LinkedIn Salary will give you a salary range for your job title, experience, and city. Note the median, 50th percentile, and the 75th percentile. These are important to pay attention to. Talk to recruiters. Recruiters are a gold mine of info. You want to research and reach out to one in your field and be direct. I'm not actively looking, but I'm doing my due diligence for my annual review. For a role like mine with X years of experience, what salary range are you seeing in the market right now? They talk about money all day long, and while usually they're going to be capable of sharing some insight in addition to talking about that money. Michael says, if you can't get hired, create a job, never be idle, network. You know, I told a buddy about that. Create a new job title in the company. Make it a thing. You know, if I was told when I was younger to find the things that nobody else wants to do in the company and do them better than anybody else has ever done. And that will make you an asset and a backbone to the company, because the stuff still needs to get done. But if you find the things that nobody else wants to do in the company and that's what you are the best at, you're going to be the missing cog in the wheel of success for the company. Because typically companies fall short from the one task or the number of tasks that nobody wants to do. Because until that gets done, we're not going to be successful, right? So you can create a new job position. You can redirect your efforts into fulfilling other job positions. And then after you fulfill that job position for a reasonable period of time, you can request a promotion to that job position, especially when that job position comes with a higher pay rate than what you're currently making. Because your argument is that I've been acting as the project manager or fulfilling the job duties of the project manager for the past 6 months. Since I am essentially replacing the current project manager with my presence, it would make sense to promote me to another project manager, not replacing the project manager, promoting me to another project manager so that I can manage more projects, which increases the performance of the company. So while the current project manager has his or her own team, if they're going to promote you to another project manager, then your team and their team can work together, or y'all can alternate, because in certain jobs, they have day shift and night shift, weekend guys and weekday guys. They don't always have just one group doing it all. And they usually overlap individuals so that when somebody's off, somebody's still here fulfilling that task. Now, as Michael said, you guys want to network, and you want to network carefully. You can ask trusted peers about ranges, not specifics. For a senior analyst role around here, are you seeing a range more in the area of 80 to 90,000 or 90 to 100,000? Ballpark. Once you have this data, you have your anchor. You can see exactly how current your salary stacks up to the market average. You now have a case that says, here is the specific value I delivered, and here is how I make the team better, and here is the data that shows what my skills are worth on the open market. You're no longer asking for a raise. You're presenting a business case for a compensation adjustment. This shift in framing is everything. You've done the math, you've built your dozer, and you're armed with logic and data. Not coming off of feelings. Well, I feel like, no, I don't feel shit. Cold-hearted. You can't try to play the pity game, because everybody has a pity game. Some people use pity to get time off from work. Some people use pity to get extra hours on the clock. So you can't come and use pity. Something's going on with my family. I need more money. Something's going on in my personal life. I need more money, because so many people have given that type of excuse for other areas of the work field that you're not going to be able to utilize that to get a guaranteed raise. You've got to bring logic and data. Now it's time to negotiate. It can feel intimidating, but it's just a structured conversation about value. Remember this real quick. It is not a fight where if they don't give you what you ask for, that you're no longer employed here. You can push it that far. But if this is the only job and you don't have a fallback plan, that's not what you're trying to do. You're trying to navigate an increase. But if you don't get it, you don't get it. You're going to be bitter about it, and your work ethic is going to decline because of it, but you're still going to have a job. And since you're prepared in negotiating, you will be able to control the narrative which might make you succeed a lot better. Doesn't mean that you'll get everything that you're looking for, but you will get more than what they would have originally offered you, which still, meeting halfway, you are doing better than what you would have been doing instead of just taking what you can get. Research shows that about 73% of employers actually expect you to negotiate, yet over half of employees don't, which is one of the reasons why companies lowball you on their first offer, because while they're willing to give you more, they're hoping to give you less. So don't be in the half that takes what they can get. Negotiating can boost a starting salary by an average of $5,000, and successful negotiators see an average salary increase of nearly 19%. So let's think about this real quick. The original 3 to 5% offer, which barely scrapes the bottom of inflation compounded with taxation, versus pleading your case and getting 19%, where taxation coupled with inflation might take 5 or 6% of your total raise, but that still leaves you with 13% pay increase above taxation and inflation, which means you really start seeing the value in your raise. Here's a playbook: timing, the opening, the ask, handling objections, and closing the deal. These are the ones that we're about to talk about real quick. First, let's talk about the timing and setup. Timing is everything. Don't do it in a half-ass way. You're not trying to do this in the hallway. You're not trying to do this in passing. You're not trying to walk with the boss on the way to lunch, talk to them on their way to the car. That's not what this is about. You want to schedule a formal meeting. The best times are during your performance reviews or right after a major win. So if you're a good worker, you're not getting demerits on your job during a performance review where you have piss poor performance, where they're coaching you on how to perform better. Because if they're coaching you on how to perform better, you're not going to talk about getting a raise, right? But if they're singing your praises like you're above average and you can start training other people on how to perform better, that's when you want to negotiate a raise. Or if you just closed a major client, if you won a major case, if you closed a deal that brought more money in than what the company expected, if you performed on higher quantities of productivity where other people wasn't able to perform, right at that moment, that's when you start negotiating. Michael says, a good book to read, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. All right, that's good. Give that a read, guys. How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. Now, before the next year's budgets are finalized, that is the time frame you have. After a progress review or a big win or accomplishment in a company, but before they evaluate next year's budgets. Because once they get the budgets, if you're not in the new budget, if they haven't factored you in a new budget, your pay raise is not going to be in there. So send a professional meeting request, discussion about career growth or checking in on performance and goals. In the invite, say something like, hi, put the manager's name in there. I'd like to schedule a 30-minute to discuss my performance and my goals here and how I can continue to maximize my value to the team. It's professional, not an ambush yet. Step 2, the opening. Start the meeting on a collaborative note. Thank them for their time and reiterate your commitment. So, thank you for meeting with me here, and I'm proud of what we've accomplished this year. I've been thinking about my long-term future here and wanted to discuss my performance and compensation to make sure they're aligned with the value I'm bringing. That's when you start sliding in. Let's get this money coming. This is a positive, forward-looking introduction to the topic in a professional manner. He said, first rule to pay raise is don't piss off the manager. Yeah, that is true. If you're working in a job where you don't like your boss and you make that known, then when you decide to go ask for a raise, they're less likely to give you what you're looking for. They're not going to let you get below minimum wage, but they're not going to give you what you want, because you not liking them makes them not like you more than them just not liking you because you suck at your job. So now let's bring out your value dozer. Bring a physical copy. Walk them through your top 3 to 5 wins. As I prepare for this, I reviewed my key accomplishments. For example, the new onboarding system I developed cut setup time by 30%. The X project I led came in $20,000 under budget, and the Y campaign generated over $100,000 in revenue. You're not boasting, you're reminding them of the return on investment they get from you. Step 3, making the ask after you've shown your value. This is when it is time to make the ask. Be clear, confident, and specific. Don't say, I'd like a raise. State a number specifically. Whether it is, I would like a 20% raise, or I would like a $2 an hour raise, whatever. State a number. Your market research gives you a target salary. Best practice is to state a specific number, not a broad range. Because if you say, well, between X and Y, they're going to go with the lower value every time. Anchor it in your research. Here's a powerful script. Based on the value I've delivered and my research on compensation for similar roles in our city, I found that a salary of $95,000 is in line with the market for someone with my skills and track record. So I'd like to have my compensation adjusted to that level. Now, if you're Ryan, when Ryan originally had an $80,000 income and he's asking for $95,000, that is a $15,000 pay increase over the year, which is a little over $1,050 or so per month increase. Way higher than what we discussed in our original example. Then the hardest part, stop talking. Once you put that price down, shut up. Let them respond. Resist the urge to fill the silence or back down. Do not take back what you said. Do not apologize for your position. Do not try to further justify why you asked for that, because they're going to sit there and listen to you talk. They're going to sit there and listen to you dig. And as you dig, they will bury you in that. Step 4, handling the objections. You probably won't get an immediate yes. That's normal. The first objection, that's a big jump. We don't have the budget for that. Acknowledge the constraint, then pivot the value. Your response should be, I understand that budgets are a real constraint. Could you help me understand the process and what would be needed to make this happen in the near future? I'm confident the value I deliver provides a significant return, and I'm committed to helping the company hit the goals that would make this salary possible. Is there a path to revisit this in 3 or 6 months? This makes you a team player, but also puts the ball in their court to define a path forward. So if you're making 80,000, you want 95,000 within the next 6 months, what do you have to do to get to that 95,000? Right? Objection 2. You're doing great work, but that's higher than the salary band for your position. You know that they're going to say that there's salary caps. There's always going to be in a company. If they can't give you a logical reason why they're telling you no, they will blame it on a salary cap. This is a structural problem. Explore the structure, right? Michael said, I just wanted to say how good you are. Your knowledge is super. It is hard to find people with high IQs. I seek knowledge and you have everything I need. Thank you. Do I get the raise? That is one way to get in there. That's a good response. Your response to the salary cap would be, I appreciate you sharing that. Could we look at the responsibilities for my current level? Given that I've taken on mentioning a higher level responsibility from your dozer, perhaps my current title no longer reflects the work I'm doing. If my responsibilities have outgrown my current band, what would it take to be re-leveled to one is appropriate? Appreciate you coming to the show tonight, Michael. I'll see you tomorrow night because we're going to be talking about what were we talking about? Getting fired. I think that's what we're talking about tomorrow. How do you handle that? But we've got some more information for you guys for the rest of the weekend as we trade on our stocks. But appreciate you coming through, Michael. We'll see you tomorrow night. We've got a little bit more to go, so we're almost done. Now, this reframes it from a raise to a potential promotion, because if they tell you that the position that you're in has a cap level, for example, hourly wage employees have a max limit, and then after that max limit, you have to go into salary. If you don't want a salary position, you're giving up a pay raise. If you don't qualify for the salary position for whatever reason, that's why you would ask them, what do I have to do to get to that level? Objection 3 is going to be, let me think about it, or I need to talk to HR. This can be a delay tactic. Your goal is to lock in a next step. So your response to that is, of course, I understand. I appreciate you taking this to the next level. Could we schedule a brief follow-up for next week to touch base on that conversation? Now, this holds them accountable for a timeline. They're not just going to tell you no by saying, I'll think about it. You have to hold them to a specific timeline. How long are you planning on thinking about this, right? Fifth one is going to be the closing the deal and thinking beyond a salary is huge. If, say, they tell you, yeah, fantastic, getting a new salary and effective date in writing as to when that salary goes into effect. But what if they counter with a lower number, or say the salary is truly fixed? Negotiate beyond base salary. Total compensation is a package. Consider asking for a performance bonus. Asking for a performance bonus. If the base salary is fixed, could we set up a performance bonus of X%? If I achieve specific measurable goals, whatever they may be, then I get those performances. Certain things like more PTO, an extra week of vacation is valuable, more sick days. A professional development budget is also something that you can look at. If $3,000 for courses and conferences is doable, you can get stock options or equity in the company. So say they can't give you increased salary, but they can give you shares in the company. That works. If they're giving you a certain number based on, you would have to look at the shares in the company and see how much they're valued at. But based on the quantity of raise that you're looking for, if you're trying to get $15,000 a year worth of shares in the company, that'll work. That'll hit you big. Now, a title change. A better title gives you leverage for your next role inside and outside of the company. By being flexible, you can find a win-win that increases your total compensation, even if the base salary isn't exactly what you proposed. In doing so, congratulations, you did it. You went through the uncomfortable process, made your case, and secured a real raise. You won that. But the most important part is just beginning. Getting the raise is one thing. Turning it into lasting wealth is another. Because this isn't where the real danger lies, this is where most people start to stumble. They get a raise and they're spending just raises to meet the raise that they got. So as they get more money, they spend more money. This is called lifestyle creep. And it's the silent killer of wealth. A bigger paycheck leads to a nicer car, more dinners out, and at the end of the year, they're in the exact same financial spot, just with slightly shinier things. This is the hidden trap that prevents your raise from ever making you wealthy. In this final section, we're going to expose the biggest mistake most people make after getting more money, and I'll give you a simple automated system to sidestep the trap and turn your extra cash into real lasting financial freedom. So you're going to break that cycle the moment you get confirmation of your new salary. You need a plan for every single new dollar. So you need a simple automated system that builds your freedom. Here is your 4-part plan for that new money. Part 1 is annihilate high interest debt. We've talked about this plenty of times before. Before you do anything else, you must destroy high interest debt. So I'm talking about credit cards, personal loans, anything over 7 to 8%, paying off a credit card that with a 22% interest rate is like getting a guaranteed 22% return on your money. You can't beat that in the stock market. Well, I can beat that with the stock market, but on average, most people can't beat that with the stock market. Take the entire after-tax amount of your raise and throw it at your highest interest debt until it is gone. Automate this payment so that the money is gone before you're tempted to spend it. Number 2 is fortify your emergency fund. If you don't have 3 to 6 months of essential living expenses saved, this is your next priority. Now, one of the things that I've noticed is that since you're not turning a profit by leaving the money in the bank accounts, residual revolving bills like phone bills, light bills, water bills, gas bills are bills that have a fixed quantity of cost for service. If you overpay these costs, you extend the due date of the next bill for the service, which means now they owe you a certain quantity of money worth of service for the amount of money that they've already gotten from you. So if you were paying your $100 a month light bill and you start paying $150 a month on your light bill, you start overpaying on your light bill, you can find yourself in 2 months with 3 months of electricity paid for because they owe you that extra $100, which means that your next month's balance is going to be less because they're going to take what you owe out of what you gave them, and whatever is left over is what you owe. But if they still owe you service on top of the money that you've already given them, then you'll still have a negative balance where you don't owe them anything. This doesn't work with car notes, because if you give them more money than the monthly payment is due, you still owe them more money next month because the overall total has not been paid down. But this does work for your car insurance, paying your car insurance in advance. So your car insurance can be paid up for the entire policy. You can advance pay on your rent, lights, gas, water, phone bill. Your rent is a little bit flaky, but if you're paying in advance on your rent, you're less likely to be evicted unless you really piss off your landlord. But if you start paying 3 to 6 months in advance on all of your bills, they've already got the money. You don't necessarily have to auto pay on it. And you could take a 2 or 3 month vacation and come back and you're not in the hole. If you do this for a year or 18 months where you're advance paying on everything, where it is a year or whatever advance paid, you could take a 6 month vacation, come back and still have 6 months before you need to pay your bills. Think about that for a second. This is your next priority, but this is your defense against job loss, medical bills, or car repair when you're putting this money away. Once your bad debt is gone, redirect the cash from your raise into high yield savings accounts, paying bills in advance, but don't stop until you have that cushion where you could spend a few months unemployed and not be hurting. It provides a peace of mind that is priceless and gives you freedom to make career choices based on opportunity, not fear. If you have a blanket of money sitting there that can be utilized for if you have to change jobs, where if your job becomes unbearable, you can't find a meeting of the minds with the employer, you're able to shut it all down and relocate and start something else. Because if you're getting the 80,000, you need 82,000. They're not willing to give you the raise that you need. And other places are offering 95,000, and that's what you're asking for. You're asking for at least 90,000, and he's not willing to give you that. You can go get it from somewhere else. Now, automate your investments. With your debt gone and your savings secured, it's time to build the wealth. This is where you raise. This is where the raise that you get really starts to work for you. So you need to increase your investment contribution to your 401k contributions, where the percentage your HR portal will produce. You're looking at a partial investment from HR. That's when your raise is confirmed for the day and you start seeing a larger percentage. Because think about this, some companies have dollar for dollar matching up to a certain amount of money on your 401k or your Roth IRA. And if they're doing that, if you put in the maximum quantity of money that they're willing to match, you're getting twice as much money on your 401k. Make sure you're getting the full company match. It's free money. Roth IRAs, if you're eligible, a Roth IRA is a powerhouse. Your money grows and can be withdrawn in retirement completely tax-free. Now, the brokerage accounts, which is the ones that we're doing with the dividend rotation strategy, once you max out tax advantaged accounts, open a standard brokerage account and invest in low-cost index funds. The key here is to automate it all. Set up automatic transfers for the day after you get paid. You pay yourself first, and the money is working for you before you can spend it. And then part 4 is going to be the mindfully inflating your lifestyle. Just a little bit. Do you get to enjoy any of this? Yes, you do. The goal is to be intentional, not a monk. I recommend applying a 50-30-20 rule just to your raise. 50% of your future at least half of your take-home raise goes to debt, savings, and investments. 30% to lifestyle upgrades. Using this to consciously improve your life. Maybe it's a house cleaner service to buy you back time, or a travel fund for experiences, but be intentional. The other 20% is to guilt-free spending. This is your fun money. Buy the fancy coffee, go to the nice restaurant. This small planned indulgence helps you stick to the bigger plan without feeling deprived. By following this, you turn a pay raise from a temporary bump in a powerful engine for wealth. So you'll be able to go from a temporary relief to permanent relief when you're following this particular method. So let's bring it all back. We started with a simple, dangerous idea. The pay raise you get is often an illusion, a number that feels good but gets eroded by taxes and inflation, leaving you stranded, still standing still over even in some situations, moving backwards. But you are now equipped with the truth, so you know how to calculate your real value. You now have a plan. You now have to build your value dozer with your wins, your impact, and market data. You have to build your script to walk into the negotiation not as an employee asking for more, but as a business partner discussing the value you create. And then finally, you know how to take that victory and multiply it, destroying debt, building security, and investing in your future. So this isn't easy. It takes courage and preparation, but the alternative is to passively accept whatever you're given and wonder why you never get ahead and you do not have enough. That is not your path. That's not what I want for you. Your path is one of ownership, of actively shaping your financial destiny. The tools are now in your hands. The only question is, what will you do with them? Now, remember, if this video opened your eyes, make sure that you subscribe, make sure that you like to the channel, make sure that you share it with somebody who can benefit from it. We're going to release content like this every day to help you master your money and your career and your personal decision-making power outside of the workplace. Let me know in the comments, what is the one action you're going to take this week after watching this show? Are you calculating your real raises, starting your value dozer, scheduling that meeting, or negotiating that deal? Share your journey with us, because this helps everyone. I want to thank you guys for coming to tonight's show. Like I say every night, ladies, as long as the situation doesn't make sense, I'm going to keep asking you ladies to make it make sense. So ladies, please make it make sense. We are still live 7 nights a week, and we will be coming up with more topics ahead. Note that any information that we put into the comment section, you will find that information replayed in real time on the post live replay. Most of the shows have been put up for the rest of this weekend, and you can hit the notification button on any shows that you're interested in getting involved in. Like I said, anything that you missed, you can go back and rewatch those, and those are going to be in real time. So I encourage you to get all of the information that you can, then do research based on what you find out. Fellas, I appreciate you guys coming to the channel. We are 75% male-driven podcast from the male perspective, but ladies, you can take the knowledge that I give you and utilize it to improve yourselves. I really appreciate everybody for coming to tonight's show. Thank you for coming to this and that. I'm your host, Xander, where we talk about this, that, and everything in between. And I will see you guys tomorrow night.
Chase validation, now I validate myself. Building inner strength, putting doubt upon the shelf. No more unnecessary drama, no more wasted time. Climbing higher, constantly making my own climb. My network is my net worth. Choose your company wise. Surround yourself with eagles, not with sheep in disguise. Every interaction is a reflection of my brand. Quality over quantity, that's my personal command. Living, I'm manifesting my vision, cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield to mediocrity and chaos. I will never surgical